This is right here, it's the infamous Mobb right here. We got Prodigy, Havoc right here. It's getting ready to get real crazy. You hear me? Fourth quarter, boy.
What up, guys? It's your boy Ali, and welcome to Hip Hop Forever. Now, Mobb Deep is a legendary rap group that originated in Queens, New York. The group consists of the prophetic rhyme slayer known as Prodigy and the producer/rapper of the group known as Havoc. Mobb Deep has put out multiple bodies of work that most people consider classics, but before the pair achieved their dreams and became legends in their own right, there were simply two kids from the same neighborhood that enjoyed making music together. Now, Havoc and Prodigy met in 1989. At the time, Prodigy went by the name Golden Child, and after hanging out a couple of times, Havoc and Prodigy realized that they had the same goal, and that was to make a mark on the music industry. Now, in 1993, Mobb Deep released their first studio album called Juvenile Hell. After years of hustling, the pair felt like they were finally about to make their mark on the music industry. However, according to Prodigy, their first studio album wasn't them, and they didn't have the creative freedom to make the music that they truly wanted to make. After not being able to put out the album they wanted to, Prodigy and Havoc made a vow to not compromise their art again, and in 1995 they released their classic album called The Infamous.
Yeah, to all the killers and the $100 billers.
The Infamous spawned massive hits like Shook Ones Part 2 and Survival of the Fittest, and just like that, Mobb Deep became a force to be reckoned with within the music industry. Now, over the years, Mobb Deep put out a lot of good material. However, in 2003, they found themselves in a precarious position once again when their record label called Loud Records got folded. And without a label to call home, Mobb Deep found themselves in musical limbo, a space where most rappers' careers go to die. To make a long story short, 50 Cent gave Mobb Deep a call during this time period. He thought that they would make great additions to G-Unit because their content is similar and they were from the same neighborhood. After much consideration, Havoc and Prodigy decided to take the deal, and that's how Mobb Deep officially became a part of G-Unit Records.
Yeah, it's 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, Tone Yayo, Mobb Deep, and the booth. It's the truth, let's do it.
Now, Mobb Deep's time with G-Unit was short yet fruitful. They were on the label for a couple of years, and during that time they dropped a lot of good music that people still bump to this day. However, like most artists, their time on G-Unit came to an end, leaving fans wondering what happened to Mobb Deep on G-Unit Records. Now, to be blunt, a lot of people did not respect Mobb Deep's decision to sign with G-Unit Records. When 50 was at the top of his game, he accumulated a lot of beefs with a lot of artists, and one of them was with the New York veteran known as Jadakiss. Now, for those of you that don't know, Jadakiss and 50 started beefing in 2004 after Jada appeared on Ja Rule's New York record. At
100 clips, nigga, I'm from New York, New York.
At the time, 50's beef with Ja Rule was still the talk of the town. Ja Rule's career was on the decline because 50 and his team were constantly going at him, so Ja tried to make a comeback by releasing his album called Rule in the same year. Now, New York was a single off of the album. The song featured Jadakiss and Fat Joe, both of whom became targets of 50 right after the song aired. Now, 50 didn't like the fact that Jadakiss and Fat Joe appeared on a song with Ja Rule. He felt like they were trying to help Ja revive his career, and that's why 50 decided to target Jadakiss and Fat Joe as well. 50 Cent and Jadakiss traded jabs at each other over several records. However, the line that applies to this video comes off 50 Cent's Piggy Bank record.
Jaded off with me if you wanna eat, cause I do your little like Jay did Mobb Deep.
Now, Jay-Z and Prodigy had a very public beef. Prodigy was offended by a line in one of Jay-Z's songs called Money, Cash, and Hoes, and the line reads as follows. While y'all play a hate, we in the upper millions. What's the dealings? It's like New York's been soft ever since Snoop came through and crushed the buildings. The reason Prodigy took issue with this line, he believed Jay-Z wasn't very active during the whole West versus East Coast beef. Prodigy believed that Jay-Z should have said something back then instead of waiting for the beef to be over before he addressed the issue. Now, to keep a long story short, Jay-Z responded to Mobb Deep on the legendary Takeover diss track.
I don't care if you Mobb Deep, I hold triggers to cruise. You little fuck, I got money stacks bigger than you.
After that, Havoc and Prodigy responded to Takeover with a track called Crawlin'.
Let's keep it moving, better keep walking, then I have them crawling.
Now, the general consensus is Jay-Z came out on top in that situation. Jay-Z performed Takeover at Hot 97 Summer Jam in 2001, and while performing the song, Jay-Z put up a photograph of Prodigy as a child on the screen. Prodigy was dressed in ballet clothes, and it goes without saying that this was not a good look for Mobb Deep. Now, that was just a brief summary of the beef. It did slightly hurt Mobb Deep's brand. Fans of Mobb Deep weren't happy with the line that 50 used against Jadakiss, and that's one of the reasons why fans of Mobb Deep took issue with them joining G-Unit in the first place. Now, on May 2nd, 2006, Mobb Deep released their 7th studio album, Cold Blood Money. The album sold 262,000 copies in its first week, and it debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200. Blood Money is Mobb Deep's second most successful album to date. The only other Mobb Deep album that surpassed Blood Money in terms of sales is Murder Music, which was released in 1999. Now, even though Mobb Deep was able to release a good album under G-Unit Records, the fans were still divided. A lot of people felt like Mobb Deep was its own entity, and they didn't want Mobb Deep to lose their identity.
The Out of Control remix was getting a lot of video and radio play, but I was starting to hear a lot of hatred because Mobb Deep signed with G-Unit.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, Mobb Deep saw the entire situation as a business deal and nothing more. They knew that signing a deal with 50 Cent would be lucrative because at the time 50 was one of the biggest artists in the world, and everything he touched turned to gold or platinum, so signing to him was a no-brainer for Mobb Deep at the time. A lot of people were hating on us. A lot of the Mobb Deep fans, a lot of people in the world were hating that we did a deal with the G-Unit. They'd be thinking that Mobb Deep is supposed to be Mobb Deep, self-contained. Why is y'all up under 50? We were looking at it like it was just business. These people out here, they should have been congratulating us for still doing deals. Some people can't do that. Some people ain't relevant no more, but we're still doing deals with people. We're still able to function and have a career. A lot of our fans, they're so attached to Mobb Deep, they're so serious about Mobb Deep, that they didn't want to see us under anybody else's brand. A lot of people don't understand that it's business. You know, now that I'm a little bit older, I understand what Mobb Deep was trying to do a lot more. At the end of the day, Mobb Deep wanted to release a quality album with a label that was going to give them the most exposure possible, and because G-Unit was at the top of their game, Mobb Deep made the best move for them at the time. Now, another reason why Mobb Deep signed to G-Unit Records is because 50 offered them great incentives for signing to the label. After signing the contract, 50 promised to give Mobb Deep $1 million. According to Prodigy, $500,000 would go to him, and $500,000 would go to Havoc. Now, that's not the only thing 50 promised them. 50 also offered to take them on 2 back-to-back tours, that being Eminem's Anger Management Tour and 50 Cent's Massacre Tour. 50 Cent also offered Mobb Deep a merchandising deal for clothing, of which 70% of the profits would go to Mobb Deep and 30% would go to G-Unit. One more thing he promised Mobb Deep is a placement on his upcoming album for the Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack. Now, before Mobb Deep joined G-Unit Records, they released their 6th studio album called America's Nightmare. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, and it sold 109,000 copies in its first week. In comparison, Blood Money, which was released under G-Unit Records, sold 262,000 copies in its first week. Now, it's clear that Mobb Deep's sales numbers increased after joining G-Unit Records, so at the end of the day, signing to the label was a great business move for them. Now, according to Prodigy, another reason why he felt like it was time to leave G-Unit Records was because the label had too many artists. Mobb Deep was having so much fun working with the other members of G-Unit that they neglected working with other artists. And because they were constantly working with 50 and the other members of G-Unit, a lot of fans felt like Mobb Deep's image was being absorbed by the G-Unit brand. That G-Unit album that we did, Blood Money, yeah. I think the only problem with that album was we was having so much fun just doing songs with our people. They was on too many songs, I think. I think 50 was on too many songs. Then we had Banks, Yayo, and Buck. You know what I mean? It was a little bit oversaturated with the G-Unit artists. When I was out, we was touring the album, I was hearing all this feedback from the fans like, oh, this album is too G-Unit. Mobb Deep sold out. Now in 2009, Mobb Deep got released from their G-Unit contract. Contrary to popular belief, Mobb Deep wasn't dropped from the label. In fact, 50 had every intention on working on another album with them. However, Mobb Deep decided that it was best for their brands and the fans would respect them more if they left G-Unit. At the time, G-Unit was changing distribution deals. According to Prodigy, there was a clause in Mobb Deep's contract that allowed them to leave the label if it didn't have any distribution. Mobb Deep took advantage of this clause in their contract, and that's how they parted ways with G-Unit. That's what actually took place. But 50 came to see me when I was locked up, and he expressed to me that he wanted to do another deal. He was interested in doing another Mobb Deep album, so when I got home, we sat down and had that conversation with him. We decided to just try to get this distribution deal set. Because at the time in the game right now, it just felt like that's what we needed to do. If we wanted to have the respect of our peers and the respect of the fans. If we wanted certain things to go a certain way, we just needed to have our own company and run our own company. So we decided to take advantage of that clause in the contract and just go our separate ways, but we still cool with G-Unit.
And he was looking for a new distribution deal. There was a clause in our contract that says if a certain amount of time the label doesn't have distribution, we automatically, the contract is dead.
Now Havoc said something completely different about why they left G-Unit in another interview. Apparently Interscope Records was not impressed by the numbers Blood Money did. It wasn't a flop, but it wasn't good enough to pursue another album, and that's why Mobb Deep was released from their contract. It was a problem for Interscope, where I guess they felt like we didn't sell enough records for them at the time, so they let us go off the roster. And we was like, the stipulations in contracts was real technical, so after that I think the G-Unit contracts just expired. But we won't stay homeless for long. Now, as most Mobb Deep fans know, Prodigy passed away in 2017. He died when he was 42 years old, and even though he lived a great life, he still passed away way before his time. Mobb Deep's time with G-Unit was short, yet fruitful. Even though they only got to release one album under the label, it still worked to their benefit, and they did what was best for them, despite what the fans felt about it.
We all from the same hood, you know what I mean, and you know, son is like a genius.
Now in 2018, Havoc spoke about the potential release of a new Mobb Deep album. He claimed to have several Prodigy verses in the vault, and it seems like the only thing stopping him from putting the album out is the approval of Prodigy's family.
So I want to give it time, you know, I want to give the family time, you know, it's not up to me.
Now the album didn't come out in 2018, and that's either because Prodigy's family doesn't approve of the music that they did, because they're trying to preserve Prodigy's legacy, so in a way that makes sense, or Havoc is waiting for the right time to put the project out. Mobb Deep's Spotify page gets about 3 million monthly listeners per month. That's very good considering they can't put out much music together as a group. Havoc still tours both domestically and internationally, and he still makes sure to keep Prodigy's name alive whenever he can.
All people want to know is what kind of songs can you make, you know what I'm saying? As long as you're making good music that feeds the people, that's all they care about at the end of the day.
That's it for me, man. It's your boy Ali. What happened to Mobb Deep in your opinion? Let me know down below. Also, if you have any video requests, be sure to let me know down below as well. Peace.